What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and if it's your first time, welcome to the channel for the first time. My name is Chris, and recently I've been trying to be more intentional with the content I've been consuming. In the digital age, I feel like it's really easy to mindlessly consume things and not really process the information in any meaningful way. It's really easy to throw on a TV show in the background or play music and listen to it passively without actually thinking about what you're letting enter your brain. And so recently I've been trying to rewire my brain into really thinking about what I let in there. So in this video, I'll be talking about all the content I consumed in the month of April. That's every book I've read, every movie I've watched, and every album I listened to this month. And the idea here is that I am being more intentional and putting more thought into what I am consuming. And hopefully that will translate over into real life, helping me to make more informed and intentional decisions in my everyday life. So that's kind of the idea behind the video. So yeah. Oh, and before I start, disclaimer, I am not like a professional movie critic or music critic or book critic, so these are just my thoughts as a consumer. I thought it would be fun to just share what I've been letting into my brain. And if you see me like glance down every now and then, it's because I have a bunch of notes in my journal here, so I stay on track and this video doesn't end up being like an hour and a half long. So with that being said, we'll start with the first medium of content, and that will be books. So obviously this is going to be the lowest like quantity of material, but obviously with books it is also the richest quality of what you're intaking. So for books, I only read 2 this month, but books are a little different from movies or music in the fact that it's like unlike a movie where you're only sitting with it for 2 to 3 hours. When you're reading a book, you are spending days with it, weeks with it, sometimes even months with it. And you're following the narrative or the story, and you're also letting those ideas and themes kind of ruminate with you over a really extended period of time, which makes books so much different from any other type of content you're consuming. So yeah, I only read 2 books this month, but I spent the entirety of the month with these 2 books, and they obviously we're sitting in my brain and giving a lot of thought, and really sitting and reading and internalizing what I was looking at helped me to make a more intentional content consumption. So this isn't a video about why you should read, but it is about what I did read. So let's get into that now. And the first book I completed this month was Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie. So this is my first book I've read from Salman Rushdie, and just straight off the bat, this book was hard. It was a really hard read. So if you're looking for like a light, easygoing spring read, this is probably not the book that you want to be reading. It is a very, very difficult book. But if you're looking for a book that is like this perfect combination of history, politics, religion, mysticism, and like calculated chaos, this is a book that I would recommend to everyone. So about the book. This book follows our main protagonist. His name is Salim Sinai, and he was born at the stroke of midnight on the day in which India gained its independence. And so off the bat, he is immediately and inseparably tied to the birth nation of India in 1947. And he mentions this throughout the entire novel. In fact, one of like the first quotes is, "To understand me is to swallow an entire world." And already you can see why this book becomes complicated. So there's a really unique aspect to this book. It's an example of magical realism. So if you've read The Alchemist, it's kind of that same style of genre. So in this story, every child in India who was born within the hour of India gaining its independence, within the hour of midnight, they all have special abilities or magical powers. And the closer that person is to midnight, so Salim was born on the stroke of midnight, the stronger their powers are. So Salim is the strongest, has the strongest of these abilities, along with his rival Shiva, which is like a kind of a foil to him in the book. But his power is the ability to telepathically communicate with the 1,000 other children who were born within the midnight hour of that day. And these are the Midnight's children. So because he's able to telepathically communicate with these people, not only are we following the story of Salim, we're following the story of 1,000 other children in different parts of the nation. And it just gives you this really rich background of culture and identity and stories and religion and war. It's a lot coming at you at once. So like I've said, this is a really hard read. But the way that Salman Rushdie like really frames the story is that Salim is connected to his country, and his own identity is tied to the identity of the nation. So not only are you following the narrative of one protagonist, you're really getting a history of a budding nation. And a lot of the book is tied into the history of India. And I've never taken a Indian history class or have really a good idea of what Indian history is. So a lot of this was new information being thrown at me. And because of that, it can be overwhelming at some times. I definitely found that a lot of the times in the book I was rereading pages if I wasn't like 110% locked in. But that's not a bad thing. I learned a lot while reading this book. Let's see. Yeah, the way that Salman Rushdie is able to tie such a diverse multitude of stories, truths, beliefs, and versions of history is just really special and magical. And it's really interwoven into this one single thread. And it can be overwhelming at some times, but it all makes sense. But yeah, once you get used to that really unique style of writing, it often switches perspectives, authors, and even like tenses, so jumps back and forth in time. Once you get used to that, this book, I couldn't put it down, and it is honestly one of the greatest books I've ever read. I know that's a huge statement, but it is pretty critically acclaimed. It won the Booker Prize, which is pretty high achievement. But if you're looking for something that is thought-provoking, is thoughtful, is really magical, then I'd suggest reading Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie. Alright, that was a lot, but I spent a lot of time with that book, so bear with me. Okay, so, oh, you guys are a little bright. Alright, there we go. So the next book that I read this month was Hawaii's Story by Hawaii's Queen. And this was written by the last queen of Hawaii, Queen Liliuokalani. So for context, I was in Hawaii for 2 weeks this April. Stay tuned for the video, it's coming up. Yeah, when I was there, I really wanted to learn more about the place that I was visiting, and kind of learn the history of what I was stepping on. And so when I was in the bookstore there, and I was looking at like literature from like that area, from that location, a lot of the books were written by white colonizers and foreigners who I feel like wouldn't be in touch with what Hawaii is to an actual Hawaiian. But then I stumbled upon this book, and how much closer to Hawaii or native Hawaiian can you get than actual royalty? So with that being said, this book was not what I was expecting. with a title like Hawaii Story, I was really expecting like a kind of full-fledged history of Hawaii from its conception to the end of it. But that's not really what this story is, and that's not a bad thing. It's just not what I was expecting. The story really is a story of Liliuokalani, who was the last queen of Hawaii. And it starts off, I will admit, it starts off a little slow for about the first 100 to 150 pages. She's just talking about her experiences at like these really regal royal parties, and I wasn't too invested. But the narrative quickly shifts in this memoir when you realize what it is about. And this book is really a plea to the world for Hawaii to gain its sovereignty back. After that first 100 pages, she lays out exactly what happened. She lays out exactly what happens before, during, and after the forced abdication of the throne of the Hawaiian kingdom. And a lot of the times during this book, I found myself becoming frustrated, like audibly frustrated with the events that unfolded in her life and in Hawaiian history. You really see the crimes done by the American imperialist agenda in the late 1800s, and honestly, it just kind of pissed me off reading this book. And you can really feel the queen's passion in what she was writing. But it's not like she's throwing accusations and there's a lot of bias in this book. She's just laying out facts and trying to be as unbiased as possible. She wrote it in a very like Victorian way because it is an appeal to other people at the time period. But it is clear that she was wronged. And this book is a really, really illustrious example of what was happening to the Hawaiian people when their land was being stolen to them. And it's this first-hand account from the actual time that it was happening. So it's a really interesting piece of literature here. And reading it really gave me an appreciation for what I was actually looking at when I was in Hawaii. That realization that what I was enjoying, this beautiful nature and this beautiful history, this was all on stolen land, which really put a detriment to the Hawaiian people. And this book is a call for Hawaiian sovereignty and autonomy, and as history reveals, that's not what ended up happening. So reading it in hindsight is kind of upsetting, but the book was really, really informative. Now, this isn't a literary masterpiece or anything, but if you're interested in Hawaiian history or royalty in general, or you're visiting Hawaii and you want a deeper appreciation for for the land you're stepping on, then I would definitely recommend this book. Yeah, it was a good one once you get past those first 100 pages. Alright, so those were the two books I completed this month. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much and what I said made sense. If you've read either one of these books, I'd love to hear your thoughts about it, because it'll be a fun little conversation between us. But yeah, that being said, we'll move into the next medium. Oh, it's getting bright. The next medium of content, and that are movies. So I'm a big movie fan, and as you guys know, I graduated college last month, so I've had a lot of time to actually sit down and appreciate movies again. So I watched 8 movies this month, so I'm gonna try and get through them pretty concisely as to not make this video super long. But yeah, and I'll only be counting movies that are new to me, like movies that I've watched for the first time this month, because if I were to say every movie I've watched, I watch like Spider-Verse at least once a month, and I watch Moana and Aladdin again, but I'm only going to talk about the new stuff because that's the stuff that I'm really internalizing and trying to be intentional with. But yeah, the first movie I watched this month was Howl's Moving Castle. What do I even say about this movie? Oh my god. Okay, so I know a lot of people, when they think of Studio Ghibli, it's really a nostalgic and sentimental thing for them. But I never really grew up watching the Studio Ghibli movies, and before watching Howl's Moving Castle, I only really watched Spirited Away, and even when I was watching that, I was like half asleep. So I didn't have that great like what's the word? Appreciation for Studio Ghibli. And from a lot of what I read, Howl's Moving Castle was a great introduction to Miyazaki's work and a great introduction to Studio Ghibli. So I decided to start with that, and I watched that at the beginning of the month. And wow, what a beautiful movie. Oh my god. Not only is it beautiful like in like the visual sense, because this is, oh, what an amazing looking movie. I really love that 2D animation style as opposed to like more of this 3D animation that we're seeing now. It's just so like charming, and I don't want to say nostalgic, but like it reminds me of childhood. But yeah, I really love that 2D sense style. But yeah, it's also beautiful because it has such a rich plot. We follow these two characters, Sophie and Howl. These are the main people. There are more people that I'll talk about later, but Sophie and Howl are inherently flawed characters. They're very insecure, and this is actually externalized in the movie when it's revealed that they both are cursed people. And it's this beautiful story of acceptance of oneself and acceptance of kind of the world, and the idea that you can't really control what happens around you. You can control what you can control. And it was really beautiful seeing the way that these characters develop, especially Howl. He's really portrayed as this really selfish, vain, egotistical character when we first meet him. And he has like this crazy riz, right? Like he's so attractive, but you realize it's all a front, and once one little thing goes wrong, he explodes. But you have this greater appreciation for him when you realize how caring he is as a character, how much he cares about the other people in this film. And I really like that sense of found family that you have in this movie. I really love Turnip Head. I know he doesn't have any dialogue at all in the movie, but you can feel that raw emotion just from the animation style in the movie. I loved that the actual castle itself felt like its own character, even though it's like an inanimate like house that walks, but it's so cool, and it kind of has its own unique character. And then Calcifer, he's so like, oh my god, I watched the subbed version, so it's like the original voice actors, and I don't know if it's the same in the English dub version, but his voice is so goofy, and like every time I listen to him like complain, I'm like, there's no way that this is how they're portraying like this big like fire demon, right? It's like he's this small cute little flame that like hops around and is like so cute and like so rich in character. But yeah, the characters were beautiful, the animation was beautiful, and then the score, oh my god, the score was really beautiful too. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but it kind of felt like one of those old like Hollywood movies, like, you know, those old Hollywood scores. And every time that dun, 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 that came into the scene, I was like immediately like drawn in. I was locked into the movie. But yeah, I don't want to ramble on too much. I know upon watching like the end, I was a little confused about like the whole war sequence. So definitely warrants a second or third watch, because definitely a lot of themes are hopping over my head, but those are just like initial reactions to what I watched, and I definitely will be watching it again. It was a beautiful movie, and if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend it. So yeah, the second, sorry, that was a lot, but it was a really good movie. The second movie I watched this month was Bottoms. So this, if you don't know what Bottoms is, it's a like comedy, a high school comedy, right? Cut and dry. It's a high school comedy about two girls who set up a fight club to try and get with their crushes, right? The people that they have crushes on in high school. And I really, like, I watched this with friends, and this is just a funny movie, man. It was hilarious. Like, I feel like it's like an LGBTQ movie, but they're not pushing any agenda, right? It doesn't feel forced. There's none of like the wokeism that people complain about when they watch like these queer films. And it was honestly just a really fun watch. Like almost all of the jokes landed for me and my friends, and we were pretty much cracking up through the entire movie. Like they build this really absurd and satirical world that is just like so ridiculous and unbelievable, but like you can see the like the real elements in it, and you get these like really heartfelt beats in there too, which is really cool and something you don't expect from like a random comedy. And I love how they're not like following a formula. Like I feel like I haven't watched this movie before. I feel like a lot of the comedies that I watch now are trying to follow in the steps of like a Superbad, but this like is distinctly its own movie, and I really appreciate that. Also, I want to talk about Marshawn Lynch's performance in this movie. Okay, I think this is like his first movie. I hope he's in more movies. He is so funny in this movie. So if you haven't watched this, like just be ready for Marshawn Lynch randomly being in this movie and low-key being one of the funniest people in it. What else do I have about it? Oh yeah, the leads are really, really amazing in this movie. I feel like the two leads just really sell. I'm forgetting their names, but they really sell like these awkward, dorky high school characters, which is like kind of on the same like whim of Superbad, where you're just following like these little dorks in high school, and they really sell the characters, and it's really believable that I'm watching a high school movie. And the leads are so good in it, and they hit the emotional beats as well, and it's just all around just a really funny and fun watch. So if you haven't watched Bottoms, I also recommend that movie. So yeah, the third movie that I watched, so I did travel a lot this month, so a lot of the films that I watched were on like the in-flight entertainment systems, like on the airplanes. So the next couple of movies are gonna be movies that I watched on flights. Next movie I watched was Asteroid City, which is by Wes Anderson. And this movie, I don't even know, how do I even talk about this movie? If you don't know what this movie is about, it's okay, because I also don't know what this movie is about, and I watched it. So I don't know how to describe this. It's like kind of a deconstruction of the process of making a movie, but also telling the story of a movie at the same time. If it sounds convoluted, it's because it really is convoluted. But we follow like a family and a bunch of like quirky, weird Wes Anderson-esque characters who go to this town. It's called Asteroid City, and it is occurring like during a weird like space anomaly that happens. So that's what I'll say. But it's not like, this isn't like faces reality. Like the whole time you know that it's a production, and oftentimes the people in the movie will hop off of like stage and talk to the directors like immediately. So it's really meta. And that's not like what I was expecting from like the trailers I've seen or what I've watched. It definitely warrants a second or even third or even fourth watch, because still I watched this movie and I was like pretty like focused on it, and I don't know what was happening for a lot of it. But there was like this one quote that they said in the movie, and it's like one of the actors was talking to the directors. He says, "I still don't understand why this thing is happening." And then the director responds with, "You don't have to understand it, just do it." And that kind of encapsulated the movie experience for me, because like, what the hell was I watching? But I will say this, the set design, like the production, the characters, the color grading, it was all like very, very visually appealing. Like obviously when you're watching a Wes Anderson film, you know that the cinematography is going to be one of the selling points of the movie, but it would be a crime to say, to not mention how beautiful this movie like looked. So I will say that. What else? Oh yeah, there were these like scenes where two of the characters, one was a photographer and one was an actor, they were living in houses across from each other, and there were these scenes where they would be talking through the window, and these were some of like the most beautiful scenes of the entire movie. It was really like they would have these like really insightful conversations, and the way that it was framed like through these windows was really beautiful. So that is something that I really enjoyed about the movie. But yeah, definitely need to watch it again. If you've watched Asteroid City and you understood what was happening, please tell me. I'm confused. Thank you. Yeah, the next movie I watched was also on an airplane, and that was No Hard Feelings. So this is a raunchy rom-com starring Jennifer Lawrence, and the whole premise is that Jennifer Lawrence is like someone who is struggling with money right now. She got her car towed, and she's looking for a way to make money and stay in her hometown home. So she finds these two parents who like really sheltered their kid growing up, and they're saying, we'll give you a car if you have sex with our kid before he goes to college. And that's the premise. And I don't know how I felt about this movie, because I know that if the roles were reversed and it was an older man being paid to have sex with a younger woman, I would not feel comfortable at all with this. And even in this movie, I found myself like cringing, you know, like, oh, this is like weird. But once you get over that, I mean, it's a big thing to get over, but like once you just realize it as a movie, it is really funny. Jennifer Lawrence like really sells the character. I found myself laughing out loud a couple of times. And I don't know, I didn't really have any expectations for this movie, so it's not like I was expecting it to be a masterpiece, but I did find myself laughing a lot of the times. And yeah, Jennifer Lawrence is great. Oh, they did this thing a lot in the movie where they like sorry, there was just a plane that passed overhead, so the video is going to be cut there. Yeah, they do this like funny humor where they pin Gen Z against like millennials, and that like hit for me just because my sister is a millennial and I'm obviously Gen Z. So I was like thinking about us, about how I get on her ass about being old, even though she's not that old. If you're a millennial, no offense, but that was like a pretty funny part of the movie for me. Yeah, no expectations for that. I mean, you can watch it if you want. It is pretty funny, but it's not something like I would die for. Okay, next movie I watched was Blade Runner 2049. Wow, this was a beautiful movie. I watched it on an airplane again, but again, I wish I watched this in theaters, like on a huge IMAX screen with the Dolby sound, cause wow, like even just watching this on a plane, I was sucked into the universe. Like, I'm a really big sci-fi fan, and I feel like Blade Runner 2049 really did the sci-fi thing well. Like watching this movie, I felt like I was like playing a video game. Like I was just in this universe, and like the way that the colors are set, the cinematography is amazing, and Ryan Gosling, oh my god, can this man do everything? This was made before he was Ken in the Barbie movie, but he's just amazing. He could do everything. Like, I was so sold on his character, and like he's this hard ass like clone from the future, and like thinking about how he was Ken in Barbie, it was just like kind of hilarious to me. But he is such a good actor. He's so versatile, and I really loved like watching him on the screen. Yeah, watching this was just like, it was so aesthetic as a movie, but also the themes hit really hard for me. It really touched on loneliness and ego and purpose in a way that I wasn't expecting from this like action sci-fi movie. And when I was like watching it, I was like really locked into this movie when I was watching it, and I was like, these emotional beats are really hitting for me right now. Like, and the way they pose expectations and reality, I think, was beautifully done. And honestly, just based off of a first watch, I think Blade Runner 2049 is like a masterpiece, and I need to watch that on big screens as soon as I can. So if you haven't watched it, this is your reminder to do that, because it is a beautiful movie. Okay, so those are the movies that I watched that weren't in theaters this month. Those are just movies that came out a long time ago and I was watching them for the first time. But I did watch 2 movies in theaters this month, and the first of those came out a couple days ago, and it was Challengers. And if you haven't watched Challengers, it is it's a sports movie, but it's also a romance at the same time, but it's also a drama. The director did a really good job of melding 3 really different genres into this really cool movie. So it follows these 3 tennis players who kind of know each other from like since they've been young. They like, grew up in the tennis world together, and there's kind of this really cool love triangle going on. And that's the premise. And I won't spoil anything, but the way that this movie is structured is something that I really liked. It really built up a lot of tension for me, really locking me into the movie when I was in the theater. And the way that they use the score, if you've watched this movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I feel like the score can be really polarizing, but personally, I really loved it. And whenever like that EDM boom, like came into the movie, I was like, oh shit. What's gonna happen? Like, what is about to happen? Oh shit! Like, they play the EDM. Like, I'm ready. Like, the score. Like, I've been obsessed with it low key. Like, for the past couple days. Like, it's been like replaying in my head that like EDM bass. Yeah, I really like the score on that. But also the performance from all 3 leads was really, really good. I think this is like the most full-fledged performance we've gotten out of Zendaya. And oh my god, okay, I like really love Zendaya. And she really like sold this performance for me. Like, she played such like, oh, I don't want to spoil it. Anyways, they were all really good. I probably wouldn't watch this with your parents. It is a very horny movie, but it's really good too. Like, the romance, like you buy it. Like, you're there, you're invested. What else can I say about this? Yeah, also the cinematography, like, it's nothing like super inventive, but I really enjoyed some of the shots. The director was really creative with some of the shots. Like, there was this one shot where they like kind of put the camera underneath the tennis court that the players are playing on. So you kind of get like this up, like this down shot view of like the players like playing above you and like sweating on you, and it was really cool. And there was another shot where they like made the camera like the tennis ball, so it was like flying back and forth, and it sounds like really dizzying, but like when you're watching it, it was like, wow, this is like really cool. So I definitely will be rewatching this in theaters next month, and I definitely recommend it to anyone who is interested. If it sounds like something you'd enjoy, I mean, I really enjoyed it, but I'd definitely watch it again. Okay. So that being said, the second movie I watched this month was in theater. The second movie I watched in theaters this month was Monkey Man. And going into this movie, I knew a little bit about it. I knew that it was ready to be released as like a Netflix movie, and it wasn't meant like for the big screens. But when I was watching this, like, I am really thankful and grateful that this got a appearance on the big screen, because it is epic. It is such a good action revenge movie, and I was so invested and like just thrilled and waiting on the edge of my seat what was happening throughout the movie. You can really feel the passion Dev Patel had behind this movie. I think in production they like broke a camera, and like he broke his hand in one of the fight scenes, and you like when you're watching this, you understand how that can happen, because it feels like the camera is just like being thrown around, like it's just really chaotic like cinematography, but it really works. It's like all calculated, and I can really buy, like, okay, unlike like your regular action movie, they tie in like these political themes, and it doesn't get preachy though. Like, you can really buy the story. So when I was watching it, I was really locked in. and I really love this movie. It was a fun action movie. I feel like I haven't gotten like a really fun theatrical action movie in a while, and this really did it for me. Yeah, I would definitely watch it again. When I saw that Jordan Peele was attached to the movie, this is not what I was expecting, but Monkey Man was honestly a really fun project, and you can feel the passion behind it. The themes hit really deep, and honestly got really emotional at some times, which I appreciated. But yeah, those were all the movies that I watched this month. So the next category I'll be talking about is music. So a little bit about the way I consume music. When I am listening to music, I like listening to albums front to back and kind of appreciating it as its own little art form. So when I talk about music on this channel, I'm really only going to talk about music that I spent a lot of time with and listen to the album front to back multiple times. Like I listen to it not just one like run through, but I continue to come back to these albums throughout the month. So I'll talk about the new music that I listened to this month. There are four albums or 5 albums? 1, 2, yeah, okay. 4 albums that I had on repeat this entire month. And if you guys have seen in the background, there's a cowboy hat up there. If you listen to music, you know exactly why that cowboy hat is there. Let me put it on for this segment. Alright, that's more like it. Okay, so without building too much tension here, the first album that I had on repeat all month was Cowboy Carter by Beyoncé. So this is the Act 2 of her Renaissance trilogy, and oh my god. Okay, so a little context about me as a Beyoncé fan. I am very much a new age Beyoncé fan. I started listening to her like with her self-titled album, and then obviously like Lemonade, and Renaissance is really my peak fandom for Beyoncé. Like I think that was my album of the year when it came out 2022, and it's just something that I had on repeat all the time, and I still listen to it. It is still in the rotation like to this day. But so that being said, the expectations for Cowboy Carter were really high for me. And when I heard Texas Hold'em and 16 Carriages, I was really excited for the album, but I was hoping that she wouldn't take the route that she did on Texas Hold'em, and that she would lean more into this folksy sound that she had on 16 Carriages. But when you're listening to this album, you realize that it is neither of those things. And it is kind of just this hodgepodge of different genres and sounds, and it is this beautiful like amalgamation of like country, yeah, but like country trap. There's rap in there. She does like an opera piece in the middle of the album, but it all makes sense and it all sounds amazing because she's Beyonce, of course. I really had high expectations because obviously she is a Houston baddie. She grew up in the South, in Texas. How much more cowboy can you get than the Lone Star State? But yeah, she killed that shit. Like honestly, this album has been on repeat for me this entire month. And I know a big complaint about the album was that it was too long. Like yeah, it's 27 songs, but I feel like it's not too long. Like every time I would go to listen to one song on the album, I'd find myself playing like 6 songs like in a row because the album is that good and I just wanted to hear it like in sequence because it is so beautifully put together. I talk about the features on this album. Okay, so she got Dolly Parton and Willie Nelson and Linda Martell, who are like these huge names in country, like kind of like the foundational pieces of country, which is cool, is that you have like these really like historic and like foundational members like backing your project, just showing that it's a testament that yes, Beyonce can do this, she can do country, and she has the support of real country music artists. I was really impressed by, okay, I've never heard about this guy before, Shabuzi. Wow, he blew me away on this, like, and this is my first time listening to him. He had he was really cool on this. Like and I think I'll dive more into like his own personal music. So what else? More about the songs. Oh, my favorite songs on this album, like if I had to choose them, I really liked her cover of Jolene. I think listening to that, I got chills like maybe at least 5 or 6 times the first time I listened to it. Spaghetti was just like this like anthem, right? Like I don't know how to describe it, but like if you've listened to this, you know what I'm talking about. Alligator Tears, beautiful song. Oh, Two Most Wanted. Okay, I think this might be my favorite song on the album. The way that Miley Cyrus and Beyonce's voices complement each other is something that I never would have expected, and I found myself like this song on repeat constantly in the head. Like it didn't even have to be playing, it was on repeat in my head like the whole month. So good. I love Beyonce. Like, oh my god, we are in the yeehaw agenda right now. I really liked Yaya, of course, as well. That cool like tie-in of Linda Martell was fun. Riverdance just had me like wanting to shake my ass right with Beyonce when it was happening. And yeah, this album was beautiful. And even if you're not a country fan, I wasn't a country fan before this, but you see now, I have a cowboy hat on right now. This was a beautiful album. Yeah, that being said, it's time to take off the cowboy hat because the next album I listened to this month was Eternal Sunshine by Ariana Grande. And speaking of renaissances, I feel like pop is going through this like cool renaissance right now where we're in a new era of like really good pop music. And Eternal Sunshine is an example of that. This album is an album about Ariana Grande and her recent relationship with SpongeBob. I don't know his real name, but he's like the guy who plays SpongeBob on Broadway, and her recent divorce. And it's really a beautiful album. I feel like she isn't like going all out on it, like showing her full vocal range or anything, but the emotional the emotional part of this album like really hits for me. And not only that, it's a fun album. Like it is something that I just found myself like vibing to, dancing to. Like Bye, banger. Yes and banger. Oh my god. The Boy, oh my god. The Boy Is Mine, banger. And I'm talking about like the deluxe version. The song Supernatural with Troye Sivan is just angelic. Like I don't even know how to describe, but it's so hard to like talk about music, but I really love this album. It was on repeat a lot for me, especially like late nights where I just wanted to like vibe, like maybe bob the head, maybe move the arms a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I really like this, and I feel like pop is in a really good place right now. The third album that I have had on repeat this month is Guts Spilled, right? Okay, so this is the deluxe version of Olivia Rodrigo's sophomore album, Guts. And if you don't know me, then I'll tell you now, I am a very big O-Rod fan. O-Rod is Olivia Rodrigo, because we're like homies, but yeah, I'm a big fan of her. I like loved Sour, I loved Guts even more. So I guess I'll talk about Guts, the album, like in general, instead of like more talking about like the spilled tracks, because you can definitely tell that the spilled tracks were part of the deluxe and not a part of the actual like, and you understand why it wasn't a part of the actual run through on the released album. That being said, these new tracks, they weren't as hard hitting as the actual album itself, but I really found myself returning to Obsessed and Scared of My Guitar. They're two very like polar opposite sides. In Obsessed, you get her leaning into that like punk rock aesthetic, like bob your head, like yeah, those really punchy like bass and guitar, and her like having this like emo scream, like punk girly singing, and you just like vibing with it, right? The Scared of My Guitar is one of those more emotional tracks. Kind of reminded me of Making the Bed on the album. But yeah, the album as a whole is really, really good. I'm actually gonna see her next month, which I'm really excited for. But yeah, Spilled, obviously I didn't think it was as good as the original like full album, but it was definitely some fun bonuses that I found myself vibing to this month. And then the last album I listened to this month, it was We Still Don't Trust You, the collab album from Future and Metro Boomin. And now, okay, this album is very long, right? And I think it is a little too long because I found myself like getting bored like halfway through. But the first like half of the album, like I was in love with that shit. Like it's not anything like really deep or emotional, but Future's like really leaning into this more R&B aesthetic, and especially these songs with The Weeknd just had me like just vibing, man. I can't even explain like the title track, We Still Don't Trust You, like we still don't trust ooh, ooh. Like that song has been like on repeat like this entire month in my head, and you can tell how happy like I am right now. But yeah, I really liked like the first couple of songs, but if you're looking for new music, I don't, maybe it's worth like one like full go through, but definitely the select songs like We Still Don't Trust You, Drink and Dance I really liked, All to Myself, and like This Sunday. Like you get like this more chill, mellow side of Future, which I really appreciate like Metro Boomin bringing out of him. And it's not like the first album, the collab album they had with We Don't Trust You. It doesn't have like these punchy like rap beef starting like verses from Kendrick Lamar. It's more chill and mellow, but you really find yourself like vibing. It's more like a late night drive type of album that you want to listen to. But yeah, wow, this was a really long video, but I feel like this is really productive for me in thinking about what I am consuming. If you listen to any of the music I listen to, watched any of the movies I've watched, or read either of the books that I read this month, I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. And if you appreciated this video and you liked it and are interested in having this become a series like every month, leave a like, and if you think I'm cool, subscribe. Thank you for watching the video. I'll see you next month. Bye.